The human body contains enough water to drown a child. In my village, during the Great Drought, we survived by drinking water that passed through our leaders' living organs. Water that tasted of copper and salt, and whispered our names at night. I was 17 when I saw my first neighbor walk into the dried lake bed, eyes rippling like disturbed water, speaking in a voice that wasn't his own. The dead had found a way back through our thirst, but that was only the beginning of our nightmare. The sun has forgotten the village of Kedzi. 3 full moons have passed without rain, and the earth cracks like the skin of a forgotten drum. Every well lies empty, every riverbed dry as bone. The elders say it is the worst drought in 7 generations. Children no longer run and play, but lie listless in the shadows of huts, their mothers wiping cracked lips with damp cloths. These cloths hold the last moisture many families possess. In the center of this dying village stands the compound of Togbe Wenya, our most revered water priest. At 70, his face is etched with wisdom like dried riverbeds, but his eyes still gleam with the power of his ancestry. Tonight, as the village sleeps fitfully, Togbe kneels before the ancestral shrine in his sacred grove, alone. "Great ancestors," he whispers, "your children are dying of thirst. The young ones will not survive another week. Show me the way." The candles flicker, though no wind blows. The ancestral spirits hear him. A voice like distant thunder fills his mind. There is a way, but it was forbidden generations ago. The water must pass through the living vessel of a true water priest. Togbe's eyes widen. "Through my body, my organs?" "Yes, but beware. Water connects all things, and some connections should remain severed. But Togbe, seeing no alternative, makes his choice. "For my people, I will do this." As dawn breaks, Togbe's granddaughter Abla finds him preparing ritual items. Sacred calabashes, blue kente cloth, shells from the forgotten sea. "Grandfather, what are you doing?" Abla asks, her voice thin from thirst. "What must be done?" he answers, not meeting her eyes. "There's something you're not telling me," she says, blocking his path. "As your apprentice, I should know." Togbe looks at her then, this stubborn, brilliant girl who carries his bloodline and gift. "Some knowledge is too dangerous, Abla. This burden is mine alone to bear." "Grandfather, enough!" His voice cracks like lightning. "Prepare the village square. Tell everyone to bring containers for water." That evening, the entire village gathers, desperate and confused. Togbe stands before them, stripped to the waist, his chest painted with indigo symbols of ancient power. The sacred staff, carved from wood that witnessed the Great Migration, stands planted beside him. "Today," he announces, "water returns to Kedzi." Elder Kudzo steps forward, suspicious. "How, Togbe?" "There are no clouds." "Not from the sky," Togbe replies, "from deeper places." Before anyone can question further, Togbe drinks from a small vial of sacred water saved for this purpose. His eyes roll back as he enters the trance. His body convulses, blue veins suddenly visible beneath his skin, glowing like rivers of light. Water begins to seep from his pores. Not sweat, but clear, pure water that pools at his feet before flowing into the prepared channels leading to the village cistern. The crowd gasps, children point. Some elders turn away, recognizing the forbidden ritual from stories passed down in whispers. "This is unnatural," Elder Kudzo mutters, but thirst overrides caution, and villagers rush forward with cups and bowls. Abla watches in horror and fascination as her grandfather's body becomes a living well. When the flow finally stops, Togbe collapses. Abla rushes to his side. "Grandfather, are you all right?" His eyes flutter open, but something is different. A rippling quality, as if looking at his eyes through disturbed water. "I am well," he says, but his voice carries strange undertones, like multiple voices speaking just beneath his own. "The village will have water for 1 week." That night, dreams come to those who drank. Fisherman Kofi sees his father who drowned at sea 10 years ago, standing on the water, calling his name. Young Mother Amma dreams of a beautiful stranger rising from a well, whispering promises of endless water. Children wake screaming about hands pulling them down into dark depths. But no one speaks of these dreams openly. Thirst makes it easy to dismiss nightmares. No one except Abla, who confronts her grandfather at dawn. "The water has voices in it," she says. "I heard them calling me." Togbe's face remains impassive. "The drought tests us in many ways, child." "This is more than drought," Abla insists. "You've opened something, haven't you? Something the ancestors warned against?" Togbe grips his staff tightly. "Would you rather watch the village die of thirst? Would you have the children's bodies burn from within while we wait for rain that will not come?" "No, but then there is nothing more to discuss. The ritual must continue until the rains return." 1 week later, the village gathers again. This time, Togbe's ritual produces even more water, but afterward, blue veins remain visible beneath his skin, pulsing with an unnatural light. When he speaks, the multiple voices beneath his own are stronger, sometimes speaking words slightly before or after his own. 3 youths who drink deeply of the water walk toward the dried lake that night, as if in a trance. Abla and others manage to stop them, but when questioned, they speak in voices not their own. "We belong to the water," one says, eyes distant. "The water belongs to us." Elder Kudzo confronts Togbe publicly the next day. "You've brought something dangerous into our village," he accuses. "This isn't just water. It's carrying spirits of the drowned." "Nonsense," Togbe replies, but his rippling eyes betray him. "The children are simply dehydrated, their minds playing tricks." "Then explain this," Kudzo demands, unrolling an ancient hide scroll. "From our ancestors' time, a warning about this very ritual. The water priest who flows becomes a bridge between worlds. The drowned can cross back through him." The villagers murmur in fear. Togbe rises, suddenly seeming taller, his voice deepening with echoes of others. "Would you return to dying of thirst then? Would you sacrifice your children to preserve your fear?" His staff strikes the ground, and the earth parts beneath Kudzo's feet, nearly swallowing him before closing again. A display of power Togbe had never before possessed. "I bring life to this village," Togbe continues as Kudzo scrambles backward. "The water comes through me, and yes, it carries whispers from the other side. But those are our ancestors, coming to help us in our time of need." Many villagers nod, convinced. Thirst is a powerful persuader. But Abla sees the truth in her grandfather's altered eyes. That night, she sneaks into the sacred grove to search the hidden texts. There, in the oldest writings, she discovers the name that has been whispering in her dreams, Notsi. Not an ancestor at all, but a sorcerer who drowned himself and hundreds of followers centuries ago, creating an army of water spirits waiting for a chance to return through a breach between worlds. Abla's hand trembles as she reads the final warning. The 7th ritual breaks the veil completely. After that, the drowned may walk among the living, taking what bodies they choose. By the 6th ritual, the village has transformed. Those who drink deeply of Togbe's water develop a shimmer to their eyes. Their skin sometimes appears translucent in certain light, revealing blue glowing veins beneath. They speak of dreams where they walk beneath the water, meeting loved ones long dead. But others who drink less grow suspicious, especially as strange events multiply. Water flowing upward against gravity, fish appearing in dry cooking pots, children speaking in voices too old for their years. The village divides, half following Togbe, who now openly communes with ancestral spirits during his increasingly elaborate rituals, half gathering behind Elder Kudzo, who warns of possession and the thin boundary between reverence for ancestors and traffic with darker forces. Abla attempts to stop the 7th ritual, gathering those still untouched by the strange water. "Please listen," she begs her grandfather as he prepares. "This isn't you anymore. Notsi is using you, using all of us." Togbe turns to her, and for a moment his eyes clear. "Abla," he whispers, his true voice breaking through. "Help me. I cannot stop myself." But then the momentary clarity vanishes, replaced by that terrible rippling. "We bring salvation," the voice, clearly not Togbe's, responds. "Your grandfather understood the sacrifice required. We only wish to live again." "You are not alive," Abla cries. "You drowned centuries ago, Notsi. You belong to the water now." The thing wearing her grandfather's face smiles. "Soon, the water will belong to us, and so will all of you." With a gesture, water tendrils erupt from the ground, binding Abla and her followers. The seventh ritual cannot be stopped. That night, beneath a blood moon, Togbe, possessed by Notsi, performs the final ritual. But this time, something fundamentally changes. As he enters the trance, Togbe's body transforms, his skin becoming translucent, showing not organs but what appears to be an endless ocean within him, populated with countless shadowy figures reaching outward. The water that flows from him is different too, thick, almost viscous, with whispers clearly audible within its flow. Those who drink immediately fall into trances, their eyes transforming to match Togbe's. 5 children who drink deeply walk as one toward the lake bed. Though dry for months, water suddenly bubbles up to meet them. They wade in, ignoring their parents' screams. When they emerge hours later, they are physically unharmed but speak with adult voices, remembering nothing of their former lives. "We are returned," they say in unison. "The flow cannot be stopped now." Villagers who resist drinking begin to physically dehydrate, despite consuming normal water. Their bodies literally turn to dust, starting with their extremities. The choice becomes impossible. Drink and be possessed, or abstain and crumble to nothing. Abla, escaping her bonds, flees to the sacred grove. There, in desperate communion with her ancestors, she learns the truth. Notsi orchestrated the drought through his lingering power, waiting centuries for a water priest strong enough to sustain the ritual but vulnerable enough through love for his people to ignore the warnings. "There must be a way to stop this," she pleads. The answer comes not in words but in visions. Togbe's staff, the legendary artifact that can transform into a boat during emergencies, is actually the ancient crosser of boundaries that can seal breaches between worlds, but using it requires 2 sacrifices: the willing participation of Togbe from within his possession, and Abla's own water magic, her birthright and future. With this knowledge, Abla confronts her possessed grandfather at the village center. By now, most villagers have succumbed, their eyes rippling, movements unnaturally fluid as the drowned spirits wear their bodies like ill-fitting clothes. "Notsi," she calls, "face me directly, not through my grandfather's flesh." The possessed Togbe turns. "Ah, the last troublesome one. Soon you too will join us or crumble to dust." "I challenge you," Abla declares, "water priest to water priest. You, a mere apprentice against me with centuries of power?" "I am Togbe Wenya's granddaughter," Abla says, standing taller. "Water magic flows in my veins, pure and uncorrupted." She cuts her palm and water, not blood, flows from the wound, forming into a sphere that hovers before her. Notsi laughs, a sound like drowning. "Very well. A final amusement before we take this village completely." What follows is a battle of water magic, Notsi commanding corrupted waters that taste of death and despair, Abla wielding pure water that sings with life. The possessed villagers watch, swaying like underwater plants in a current. But Notsi's power, amplified by Togbe's abilities and centuries of waiting, proves overwhelming. Abla falls to her knees, her waters overpowered. "You see?" Notsi taunts through Togbe's mouth. "The living cannot match the drowned. Water always returns to the deep places." "You're right," Abla says, seemingly defeated. "Water returns to where it belongs." With these words, she began the counter-ritual, cutting her other palm and mixing her water blood with the earth. As water returns to the deep, so must the drowned return to water. She looks directly into her grandfather's eyes, searching for him within. "Grandfather, if you can hear me, remember your staff. remember what it truly is. For a moment, nothing happens. Then Togbe's true eyes flash through the rippling possession. His hand trembles as he reaches for his staff. No! Notsi screams, fighting for control, but Togbe, fighting from within, manages to grasp the staff. Forgive me, grandfather, Abla whispers as she completes the counter-ritual, sacrificing her water magic. The power flows out of her like a tide retreating from shore, creating a spiritual vacuum that begins pulling at the drowned souls. Notsi howls in rage, but the pull strengthens. The possessed villagers convulse as water flows from their mouths, carrying wispy forms back toward Togbe's body. With his last strength, Togbe drives his staff into the earth between him and Abla. Crosser of boundaries, he gasps in his true voice, seal what should remain separate. The staff transforms, not into a boat, but into a shimmering barrier that rises like a wall of light between the world of the living and the realm Notsi created in the waters. The drowned souls are pulled through Togbe's body back into their proper place as the breach seals. Togbe collapses, his body returning to normal. The possessed villagers fall unconscious but breathing, the ripple fading from their eyes. And then, miracle of miracles, rain begins to fall. Pure, clean rain, with no voices, hidden in its drops. Months later, the village of Kedzi has recovered. The wells are full, the crops grow, and children play once more. But things have changed. Togbe Wenya, though alive, has aged decades in appearance. His water powers are greatly diminished. Abla's magic is completely gone, the price she willingly paid. The village has established new traditions, offerings to those who drowned, but strict taboos against any ritual that might thin the boundary between worlds. The story of Notsi is taught to every child as a warning. On the first anniversary of what they now call the Thirst, Abla visits her grandfather in his compound. "Do you regret it?" she asks as they sit together. "The first ritual." Togbe considers this. "I acted out of love, but love without wisdom is dangerous. I should have heeded the ancestors' warnings." Abla nods. "And yet without your sacrifice and what came after, we might all have perished." "Perhaps," Togbe says, "the ancestors teach us. Sometimes survival comes at costs we cannot imagine until they are paid." As they share a simple meal, Abla pauses while filling their cups with water. For just a moment, brief as a blink, she sees a ripple in the water's surface, and within it, Notsi's eyes watching her. She says nothing but pours a small libation on the ground before drinking. Some boundaries can never be completely sealed, and vigilance is the price of the village's salvation. The living and the drowned, forever connected by water, forever separated by the thinnest of veils. They say thirst makes people desperate, but perhaps the true danger lies in what we're willing to sacrifice when those we love are suffering. Our ancestors knew certain boundaries exist for a reason. The veil between worlds, the separation of the living from the drowned, the price of survival. I still check my reflection in water before I drink. I still pour libations for those who remain on the other side. What impossible choice would you make to save those you love? And more importantly, what price would be too high, even if it meant watching them suffer? The line between heroism and arrogance is as thin as water. I hope you never have to find it.